you are an undraper, just get permission from your person today that that's okay with them when you do your glute work. But everything I'm showing you, you can do clothed or not, and the most conservative thing is people don't take off shorts, and you have to leave them draped, or you're not allowed to go there because they're covered at most places. If they're covered, then you're not even supposed to go there, or you're supposed to go through the sheet. Okay, so I start out with flat fists just to help find my bony landmarks in the glute area and to do a little bit of warm up. So as I'm doing this, I'm feeling the edge of her sacrum here, right? I'm looking for ischial tuberosity. I can feel trochanter here. And then I'm looking for iliac crest, which is here. So I'm going to throw you to the wolves on one of the first things I show you. Glute medius is huge in terms of almost everybody's tight and almost everybody does not get it worked. Right? So glute medius is between trochanter and iliac crest in a space that on most people, even she's small, but on most people isn't very wide. Often it's not wide enough for me to get in the flats of my knuckles. Okay, so I'm going to put in my knuckles here between trochanter and iliac crest, and I'm going to do a hip brace. I'm going to put my elbow into my ASIS, and I'm going to have this in a straight line. You should be able to take a ruler, and I shouldn't have space between the ruler and my skin anywhere along. So we tend to be a little flexed through here. These are bumps, right? No bumps. In your wrist, you want no wrinkles. If you're extended, you've got wrinkles. If you're flexed, you've got wrinkles, right? If you're in or you're out, you've got wrinkles, right? So what I'm trying to be is as stacked through my bones as possible, and I'm going to stack all the way up to my shoulder. Okay? If you're properly stacked, the force goes all the way, actually, and I'm tucking in my hip. It's my elbow. But if I were to do this, it would be my shoulder. Okay? So I'm tucking in here, and I'm basically, if I'm stacked, I'm not doing a lot of work here. And I'm just going to lean in with this hip. Number, Maria? 3. Okay. So I'm going to get in a little better stance here. I was thinking she was a wimp. She's not a wimp. All right. So 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Now? 6. How much did I move, people?
Barely.
Right? And I haven't changed what I'm doing other than because I'm leaning a little bit to get this hip over the table. I'm having to hold myself up a little more in gravity with this QL, and my legs are, holding me up what they would be anyway. Right? So usually getting in here first, there's a lot of movement across the table. But even if I'm in here back to like closer to a 3, from a 3 to a 6 looks like this. It looks like every millimeter I move my hip into forward, because this isn't changing, I'm not letting any of my joints cave, is a millimeter deeper into her tissue. Right? All right, so this is hip brace. I will come around as you all start to do this to make sure your wrist and hand is in integrity. The way you know it is that you don't feel like you're working through here. You're not having to use muscles. If your bones are stacked up, you do not have to use muscles to keep them where they are. Okay? All the effort should be coming from your lower body and your hip. Okay? So if you have people who come in and they see a chiropractor, I do a little SI joint work with some knuckles. And again, you see here, and really when I do this, it's just so that I have a support. I'm really working through usually my third knuckle in one of my hands or both because it sticks out further, right? So I'm right in her SI joint with my right third knuckle. And this is just kind of a stabilizer, but it's also doing a little work along her sacrum while I'm here. I like to take my knuckles in just above trochanter and just lean and peel off of there. How's that feel?
Really good.
Really good, right? Blend in some yummy with a little bit of the Hurt So Good. piriformis. So often, because this doesn't say forearms on your list, but usually I'm coming in. If the table's low enough, I've got to go into toes to really stack up to do knuckles here. I knew this table would be a little high for me still at this level. All right. So just some compression, little wiggle the tail feathers. So I'm not doing this in my wrists, right? It's all coming from my torso or my legs. You good? You can always interrupt me and just loudly tell me less, okay? Do not mumble, I won't hear you. But often, if your table's too high, your option really is to drop down with a forearm or an elbow. My knuckles equals my elbows. My flat fist equals my forearm, really. And I want you to play a little bit with sitting still. So in deep tissue, they say the deeper you go, the slower you go. Keep in mind that stopped is the slowest you can go. And it's incredibly relieving if they've got something that they really need to breathe through. This, bouncing around like this, she may be like, she doesn't have time to focus attention, breathe, and really get a parasympathetic response. So play with being stopped. And if you have a hard time because you're in a flowy massage area, if you're in a spa and you think you have to keep moving and your client's going to go, what are you doing? You're not moving. Feel it for yourself, because if you feel it in your own cells, how good it feels, you're going to be more likely to do it for your clients.
Do you do much rocking though?
I don't. No. And definitely not from my shoulder. I'm going to rock. If you want to rock, you need to rock from your legs and your hips. All right. So find the tight spots and make them go away, right? Or make them smaller. So I just work my way down from broader to more specific as we go. If I'm treating an area that is an area of concern and I'm spending more time there, I go from broader to smaller. And truthfully, sometimes my broad is kind of a medium pressure, sinking in a little more to firm, and then going into my point work deep. And it's not like I spend a lot of time spreading oil, warming up, right? I just progress from what looks like deep work here, but I'm not in that much, to deep work where I am in that much, right? And so I'm not using the effleurage, the petrissage to warm up. I could be using a static compression or some gliding. When I warm up here, I might go in at light or medium and then firm. And then deep, and then compress, and then we'll do QL work tomorrow, but you get what I mean. All right. No contraindications, Maria?
Nope.
So basically I'm going to probably stay on this side even when she turns over, so whoever's working with her just kind of work from that side of the table, and then she'll get the other two sides.
Yeah, you go.
If you get past, the one part. Basically, I'm going to tell you guys when you're on the table, you can work ahead of me, even if I'm calling out and you're keeping up with me. But if you're ahead of me, just don't turn over for the second half until I tell you to. And that's when your partner's going to get the extra work on the other side, because they're going to go into round 2 of practice before we turn over if they're ahead of me. All right. Pretty much when I'm in my really big areas, I'm going to be using my bigger tools. Okay. So here, I'm going to cross fiber on glute fascia. And when my elbow gets to midline, this is my flowy, dancy move. It's the only one I have. Okay. Nice broad down that hamstring. You can stay connected. You can make deep work really flowy. Give me a number, Maria.
3.
Okay. All right. So, if she said hamstring's a problem, and I want to start going deeper in 3, 4, I was like plowing up through here, and she was at a 3 or 4. Okay. When you're trying to push through a lot of tissue, there's a lot of resistance. Okay. So if I want to go a little deeper on her, instead of being flat like this, I'm going to bring my hand up a little so that I'm in a smaller surface area. Automatically, that's going to feel deeper to her, even if I use the same force. And by force, I mean like dropping in the same amount. And now I'm not going to be plowing through this much tissue. I'm going to be plowing through about a third of it. Okay? Smaller surface area, smaller tool. Give me a number. 6. Okay?
Yeah.
I may be leaning in a little more than I was before, but not much. Okay? I hate going up on the hamstrings. I rarely do it unless somebody tells me they have a hamstring problem. What you got now?
6, 7.
6, 7. Okay, I went even more into the point of my elbow. So I can make 3 passes instead of 1. And you know, there are 3 hamstrings, so. But even if there's not, right? You just break it down. Hamstring, most people I find really hold here, and this lateral hamstring up near the attachment here.
That felt a lot tighter.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, you know, right? So do some cross fiber. If you're not doing cross fiber at this point, that can just open things up for you, literally and figuratively, in ways that you have no idea. Right? Okay. Or I might take a fist in here, right? And all I'm doing, I'm stacked to here, and nothing moves. I'm just kind of leaning to the left, right? To just be on this attachment. Right? People, I'm like, I am bracing my shoulder so that it doesn't go like this, okay? Right? Because I'm getting pushback, right? But I could stand here and just kind of bend my knee and go forward, right? And I'm not working really hard. Number, Maria?
Like 7 to 8 now.
Okay. If you're breathing hard, if you're sweating, there's a better way. So this place here in the hamstring, what I'll do is I'll break it down like a tic-tac-toe board, and I might do 1, 2, 3 cross fiber, and like 1, 2, 3 up, 1, 2, 3 down, right? So I can cross fiber just by leaning out here. And I can be as pokey with my elbow I want to or not, right? But I'm just breaking it down. We already did down. Well, we kind of actually did up more than we did down. So we'll do down, right? Just in this place. I don't have to do the whole hamstring every time. You're going to get stuff done. You find the really tight spots and you focus there. And just for a couple minutes. How's it feeling?
Good.
Yeah. I don't spend a ton of time, even on places that are hurting, unless it's something like sciatica, chronic low back pain, where the whole system needs to be addressed. But just, I mean, that for hamstring is about all the time I spend, and I was talking through half of it, so cut the time in half, at least. All right. So, I T-band, another hip brace move for me. Coming in from the side, this is going to be your most powerful way to come in from the side. But no, I'm going this way. All right, so with hip brace, I regularly have my elbow in my back hip because I'm going to bend the front knee and I'm pushing off this back leg. The depth is determined by how much I lean in. The movement is determined by I bend my front knee and push off my back leg. Okay, you good? More?
Maybe a tiny bit.
So a tiny bit more as I lean in just a tiny bit more.
That's a lot more.
Okay, so then I can lean out a half of what I just leaned in. Right? And I really didn't move, a lot. But it's IT band, right? It's IT band. And tender areas, movement, tiny little movements matter. And this is what I'm talking about. You're going to have a lot of power with this. Okay, so you just felt it coming down. I'm going to come back up and see what I said, Raquel, about switching. Right? So you tell me which direction feels most effective, like it's making change, that it may be more uncomfortable.
Going down.
Going down. Okay. All right. So muscles don't adhere in just one direction. All right. Now I'm going to go this way. So this is anterior to posterior cross fiber on the fascia. And the fascia doesn't really have fibers. Okay. Now, I can do this in this position. This is the spa client who just wants you to fix them and doesn't want to talk to you. Shut up, get me on the table. You know that attitude, right? So you're not going to be moving them around a lot, and you're not going to be talking to them much. So if I do anterior to posterior this way, then when she turns over, if I do that same thing again, I'll be going posterior to anterior. So then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 at least. Okay. But if IT-band's a huge issue, then we can move the client. Can I roll this out? No hip problems? Okay. So bend the knee a little for me. Yeah. All right. Right. So now here I have this surface. This is what I call up and over, but it's just a fist with it stacked up to my shoulder. And when you get your shoulder up and over your wrist, your hand, if it's on a downhill surface, relative to gravity, will start moving towards you. And all I'm doing is letting it glide and dropping back into my heels. I don't care how tall you are. In order for this to work, you need to go up into your toes. And then you can drop back into your heels. And sometimes you drop, if you got a really long leg, you're like down in your heels, and then you kind of got to take your hips backwards too. And when it flattens out, this is what's really pulling my arm, but I'm not scooping, right? I'm moving from here. Right, so I can go up, I can go down. I can cross fiber this way really easily, which I could before, but this way I would have run into the table, right? Okay. And think of it like a snowflake or an asterisk. I can go 1, 2, 3, 4, but then if I go on an X pattern, I can go 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I will have worked the tissue in 8 different directions. It's a pretty good complete working of the area, because you're gonna talk to your client and be like, okay, which directions, when I do them, feel like they're being the most effective? Anything going on in either direction here?
That felt better going down. But
Better? What's better?
Well, it felt therapeutic, but also just like more comforting.
More what?
Like comforting.
Comforting. Okay.
Up here, it's like
Tender.
it's more tender.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, and then
But
I can
not
go up this way.
necessarily in like a helpful way, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah, I only want what's getting us to hurt so good and that's making change.
Yeah.
Right. So that's why you don't say what feels better. Better is a very loaded word, right? You want to be really clear on what you're asking. Thank you, ma'am. So when you see horizontal in your text that I gave you, that's with the fibers. Perpendicular is perpendicular to the fibers. What do we normally say? What are the other terms you all use? I'm drawing a blank, I know them, but okay, we'll figure it out.
Like with the fibers versus cross fiber.
Cross fiber, right? Perpendicular is cross fiber. All right, calves. So calves and forearms and hands and feet are where I feel like we blow our thumbs out. Right? I mean, how much of a run up here, yeah. Nope.
Especially, down by the ankle.
Yeah.
Right.
I do a lot of
Do
Achilles
you do a lot of
tendon.
Achilles stuff,
I
right?
have one client that he keeps saying, start that lower on my ankle with this. And I'm like, I thought I'd heard him do it if I did that.
Not unless he's got a tear or a
No.
problem.
I've never
Nope.
done that low on the ankle.
You've actually got space between bone here more
Yeah.
because of the tendons.
Yeah.
Like there's space here, so even if I squash it down, I may not even be getting to bone. Okay. All right. So this isn't going to look a lot different than what I do on my hamstrings, right? So usually I'll take a broad stroke right up the middle first, and then you can do this. However, you really don't want them kicking you, so you might want to lay an arm there. Nobody's kicked me before, but remember, Maria?
That's like 7 or 8.
Okay, and I'm not in there much at all, so I'm gonna stand up. Stand up just a little, bring my shoulders
Separating
back
those
just a little.
gastrocs.
Right? That you like?
Um,
Not so much.
like 1 leg,
Number wise,
like 2 to 6.
you want a 6 in here. Okay.
Yes,
How's that?
Good.
Now, do you like it?
I like it.
right, I've got a big belly here, right? I can come with a forearm this way, but notice I'm not winging. Okay, so here's the tricks that I promised before lunch. I'm not thinking about my legs at all. Okay, I'm paying attention to two things. I'm paying attention to the fact that my face and my hand are staying in the same relationship in space. Okay, so if I do this, right, what's happening? Not my face and my hand are not staying in the same relationship. But if I keep my face with my hand, in order to do that as I move, I have to move from my legs. And I have to keep this stable. So what I think about is when I lay my tool down, my tool goes all the way up to my shoulder and my upper torso. Once I lay my tool down, I am not going to move my tool at all. Okay? And we can go the other way. So you can do these kinds of moves side to side. I call it like Spidey stance. Or you can put your weight behind them, right? And have your arm in front of you. And do them this way. And I can stay connected and be flowy and do it back this way. And I'm not going as slow or as deep as I might. A lot of lateral gastroc tightness, right? So at that point, I'm just going to go down into a sharper blade where I know, because I've touched 25,000 bodies, right? But where you know that gravity happens, if people walk in gravity, this is where the spot is. So I'm just going to run a 2-3 inch line through the really tight part on about that much of my blade. And you don't want to be doing all this, right? You don't, be floppy. You don't need to hold things up. It's just wasted energy, wasted wrist and finger and hand inflammation that you're creating.
Although, do you ever need to move your hand out of the way so it's not just brushing?
She doesn't care here. Yeah, but if it's in the way, then I'll back off a little maybe and just use the bone here instead, so I know I can do that stroke without touching her other leg.
It's just something the spas care about,
Right. Yes. God forbid. Right. So if I'm really going to get into medial calf, I'm going to do it face up and roll their leg out so that I can get over it and in it. But, you can kind of roll them out a little here and throw an arm in. You just don't want to be cranking into your body to make it happen too much. Right. But I can get forearm and elbow into that medial calf. Right into the belly of that gastroc pretty easy like this. So perpendicular, this is one of my favorites. All right, so we know we've got tibia sticking out here, right? So I'm gonna cross fiber lateral gastroc, and if I'm gonna run into a leg, one of the other tricks is go on an angle. And you're less likely to run into the other leg, okay? And I'm gonna get just past tibia with my elbow, fibula. Is it still fibula? Yeah, it's fibularis instead of peroneus. Okay. And then I'm going to elbow into the edge of her sole. How you doing?
Good.
Too much?
No.
More?
No.
And then I'll move down a little and I'll do it again. So this can change with each stroke. If you need me to ease up, let me know, Maria. It's soleus. So when I roll out of a broad stroke into my elbow, what you're not seeing really, because I'm doing it so subtly, is I am easing up to the point there is absolutely no pressure in the skin. I'm not disconnected, but there's no weight. Then I'm bringing my hand to my face, and then I'm easing back in to about a third of what I was in before. And then I'm checking before I go deeper if I should go deeper. Right? Your elbow at about a third is the equivalent of broad in general. Yeah. Feet. So if I have somebody who wants me to beat the crap out of their feet, and I actually have one woman It's not even a guy. It's one woman who wants me to beat the crap out of her feet. I do my feet work face down. Okay? Right? So normally I'm holding with the hands kind of to the outside of the table, closest to the outside of the table. And because, look, if I want to come into this foot, most people's feet kind of roll in. If I want to come into this foot and be perpendicular, this works really well. If I'm trying to come into this foot and be perpendicular and it's rolling in, I'm sliding off of it. Okay? It's just what fits where better. And isn't it nice how well it fits when you do it the right direction? Okay, right? So flat fist. Right, good warm up. I'm just leaning. I like lotion better than oil on feet because I feel like oil makes me skip a lot of times and doesn't really soak in. So just heads up on that. I'm using an oil today, but I have a cream and a lotion at home that I use for hands and feet. Okay. All right, so good warm up. All right. I have been known to get up into my knuckles, but I generally won't move with knuckles if I'm going real deep in feet, right? I don't want to have to stabilize little tiny joints. So you can, just do some point work like this. And actually doing point work into the toes, the pad with knuckles can feel really good. Maria, what do you think?
Feels good.
And then you can use your elbows. Okay? You really want to get in there and move. This is how you do. And you can have this hand up so that, like, if you feel like you're going to slide off, you've got a hand here, right? I'm generally under so that I don't smush them, but I also often bring the bolster down to here if I'm going to do this kind of work. Okay?
Yeah, it feels awesome. My feet can be kind of sensitive sometimes. So it's like interesting to have an elbow in my foot, and it doesn't hurt. That feels really good.
So when I was at Grove Park, the director thought we should never use forearms or elbows. And I'm like, they don't know it's an elbow unless you screw up. Right? They don't know. They don't know what you're touching them with. Yeah. So it's all about being able to modulate your pressure. But heels, just usually you'll slip and slide on heels if you try to move your elbow. But you can get in nice and deep. Woo. Plantar fasciitis, this is the bomb, right? A little much? Are you okay?
Yeah, like heels.
Sometimes you'll get little adjustments when you do the pad like this. And my hand's underneath because I kind of roll up. Tira's talking to get to us again over there. Yeah, something as he goes.
What
All
are
right.
you rolling up the hand that's underneath? You're
Yeah, I'm just
moving
kind of like doing this.
as you're coming down.
I'm rolling the toes up.
Right.
Sometimes you'll get it through there. Right? Little range of motion. Okay. All right. I think we are going to flip yous overs. Let me get this bolster out first.
So excited right now.
But I don't want you guys all to move around and then move around again. All right. So if you've got somebody who doesn't do adductor work most of the time on their clients.
Spas are usually weird about it.
Don't get too close to the other.
Yeah.
The whole inner thigh?
Yeah,
Upper
pretty
inner
much.
thigh.
Oh my god.
Don't make them think you're going to the groin.
Okay. So whenever there's a client that I need to explain that I need to work
What's
one
that?
place
They
to
still do
fix
soft
another
box.
place. And we learned the last 2 days that fixing low back sciatica issues, so as an advocate, tell somebody that I need to work one place to fix something else, especially a guy. No offense, because I'm about to do an electrical analogy. So I'm like, so when you plug something in the kitchen and your wife's using the blow dryer in the other room and you blow the circuit, right? You think the outlet doesn't work, right? No, right? Where do I have to go to fix the problem? The breaker box in the basement, right? So sometimes when you tell me you want me to fix something, I may be someplace you don't even understand, but it's not that I haven't heard you, and it's not that I'm not trying to fix what you've asked me to fix. Usually I try to explain more specifically so they know. You know, why are you working 80% of the time on my pecs and my upper back hurts? Right? That kind of thing. But once you've trained them up that the source of the problem isn't always where the pain is, then usually you can just stop talking about it and get on with it, right? You've built that rapport and they trust you.
Do you usually tell them like during the intake, like, okay, I'm gonna work here, just so you know. It's not that I'm not listening to you.
Right.
We're just gonna work here.
Yeah. Well, I do. I go into more detail. I do. I mean, that's the basic thing, but I want people to understand the why, right? So we are down and forward people. This is what's tight. And like I showed you earlier, I turn to the client, my back to the client, and I say, okay, if I pound the crap on your back right now, do you think it's going to make any difference? Okay. What happens if I do this first and then I work on your back? Like, just doing this first takes the tightness off your back, right? And there will still be knots and other things to work, but do you see what's happening, right? And then they get it, right? You need to help them get it. Most people just need the why, right? So I'm going to spend 60% of my time here today and on the front of your neck and about 40% on the back. And are you good with that? Because it's their treatment. They're paying. If they want a BMW, you don't hand them a VW and say, drive off the lot, right?
Like, have fun, designer.
Whatever. You know, they want a Hyundai and you hand them a VW. No, they're not going to want that. So you have to get buy-in on some level because it's their money and it's their session. Like, I have a woman who would love it if I just did this through the whole session. It's not sexual for her. It's just incredibly relaxing. And her partner, like, doesn't, zero tolerance